Are you fed up with your lack of growth on social media? I struggled with this a lot over the past 10 years and even started over 40 different accounts before I ever crossed 10,000 followers. But then I discovered this 3-step formula that finally helped me to blow past that. So in this video, I'm going to share what I discovered, how any creator can blow up by using it, and why a little bit of extra planning before you start will set you up for success. Let's jump into step number 1. Something that many new creators struggle with is picking their niche. Usually they start by making a list of everything they're interested in and then agonize over which one is their favorite before they finally pick one and call it their niche. However, by calling one of these things their niche, the creator is setting themselves up for failure. Let's say the creator chose AI. There are so many different things they could post about that their content is going to be all over the place. One day they could be sharing AI related news for entrepreneurs, and the next they could be teaching stay-at-home moms how AI can organize their schedule more effectively. The problem is that those two pieces of content target two different kinds of people. So the next time you post, the algorithm is going to have no idea who to show your content to. So instead of picking a topic, identify your ideal follower first, because ultimately that's what a niche is, a group of people who share the same interest or problem. Then, after you've identified your ideal follower, you can decide what content to make for them. So let's say you want to target entrepreneurs. After you've decided this is your target audience, you can now create the list of topics and then create your niche by pairing the two together. So for example, your niche could be AI news for entrepreneurs or parenting tips for entrepreneurs. And by targeting the same person every time, the algorithm knows exactly who to show your content. And when your target follower sees your content, they will be more likely to follow you because all of your content was made specifically for them. To really nail this home, let me share an example from an account that my wife always sends me reels from. They have managed to gain over 4.5 million followers across Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook by targeting a very specific viewer. Let me play one of these for you and see if you can figure out who they're targeting.
Okay, babe, it is 5 p.m. and the sun is up. Do you think you can make it through?
Yes, of course, babe.
Nope, no blankets.
Okay, that's a little dramatic.
Oh, I don't think it is. Okay, ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right. Stay with me. Hey. Stay with me. Stay with me.
I'm awake.
Babe, we haven't even gotten to the title of the movie yet.
I'm just resting my eyes before it starts.
No! No!
Well, I kind of already gave it away by saying that my wife always sends me these, but the target audience is young married couples. And by making content that is relatable to that specific audience, they've been able to blow up on 3 different platforms. So that is the first step of the formula. Identify your ideal follower and then make content that is specifically for them every time. All right, now moving on to step number 2. I'm sure we've all heard the advice that you should niche down to blow up, but is it possible to be too niche? When I first got into social media, I started by creating fan pages. Basketball is one of my favorite sports, and as a teenager, I enjoyed creating fan pages for my favorite players. And one of these pages was for an NBA player named Frank Jackson, who grew up in the same state as me. I worked on that page for several years and managed to gain a few thousand followers, but the page never blew up because there wasn't a big enough audience. The official term for this is Total Addressable Market, often abbreviated as TAM. And it's important to check this before you decide on a niche, because otherwise you could be setting yourself up with unrealistic expectations. Typically, a fan page will only get a fraction of the person they are covering. So if my goal was to get 1 million followers, picking Frank Jackson was not the best idea because he only has 87,000 followers himself. But if we take someone like Lionel Messi, who has over 500 million followers, that number becomes a lot more realistic. So that is the second step in the formula. Before picking a niche, make sure the TAM aligns with your goals. All right, now moving on to step number 3, which is a lesson that I've unfortunately learned over and over again throughout the years. A couple years ago, when X monetization came out, I was intrigued by the idea of getting paid to tweet because I had several accounts there and Instagram did not have reliable monetization options. So I monetized my existing X accounts and then started building my personal X account by helping other people get monetized. And this worked great for a while, but eventually X monetization started going downhill and people lost interest. The mistake I made was trying to time the market. I made a gamble that X monetization would be the next big thing, and that if I positioned myself as an expert, I would be poised to reap the rewards once the program took off. I've made this same mistake with player fan pages as well. I've already talked about the Frank Jackson one, but there's been many times where I created a page for a young prospect and then had to hunker down and hope that player reached their full potential so that my page would take off. If you guess right, there is potential for massive success, but ultimately you can't predict the future. So it's safer to pick a niche that is more evergreen. Can you say with certainty that your niche will still be relevant in a year, 5 years? What about beyond that? If we go back to Micah and Sarah, their content is about relationships, which will always be relevant. So that pretty much guarantees that they can keep making content forever. They don't have to hope relationships take off and become the next big thing in order for their account to blow up. And even better, they can create content around trends as they happen without chaining themselves to the trend itself. So that is the third step in the formula. Pick a niche that is evergreen rather than trying to time the market. By the way, I've created a worksheet that will help you follow the formula that you can download using the first link in the description. All right, now that you know the formula, how can any creator use this to blow up? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Let me walk you through an example using one of my successful pages. The first question to ask yourself is, who am I creating content for? In my case, I chose to create content for people who are fans of Lionel Messi. And a good exercise to do after you decide this is to create an audience avatar. Now, I'm not going to get into this in a ton of detail here, but basically what this means is you create an imaginary person that represents your ideal follower. Then you make a list of all the things that describe them. So what they like and dislike, what their goals are, what they're afraid of, stuff like that. And it's not the most exciting thing to do, but it will be really helpful later when you're trying to decide whether a post idea is relevant to your target audience. The next question is, what is the growth potential of this niche? The first place I went to figure this out was Messi's personal Instagram, which currently has over 500 million followers. And it was a little less than this when I created the fan page, but he still had hundreds of millions of followers at the time. The next thing I looked for was whether or not there were existing Messi fan pages. And unsurprisingly, there were. But not only that, several of them had hundreds of thousands of followers and one had 1 million. So this was definitely a niche with significant growth potential. The next question to ask is, am I trying to time the market or is this niche evergreen? Well, normally, if you're running a fan page for a specific athlete, it's risky because the player could get injured, performance could decline, and eventually the player is going to retire. But in this case, Messi is not just the greatest to ever play his sport, he's also a cultural phenomenon. So there will always be stuff to post about even after he retires. Put another way, I'm not counting on Messi to reach his full potential in order for my page to take off. He's already reached it and now I'm just capitalizing. So in my opinion, this meets the criteria. And after running through all 3 steps in the formula, this was a great niche. So it's no surprise that my page gained over 60,000 followers in just just a few years. But the craziest part is this page was never my main focus. It grew like wildfire and I barely spent any time on it. In fact, if I had followed 3 additional rules, I likely could have grown it to over 100,000 followers. If you want to learn what those 3 rules are, click the video on screen.